Good afternoon, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Google+. This is Rich again, back for your first video blog of the day for Monday, September 5th, 2016, around 4:02 in the afternoon in Billerica, Massachusetts. It actually turned out to be a good sunny day out north of Boston, and it's actually a little breezy. We didn't get the rain yet from what's left over of Tropical Storm Hermine, but stay tuned. Some news to report. Last night, the Lowell Spinners beat the Vermont Lake Monsters by the score of 4-8-3, and it's Happy Labor Day in the United States. Also, it's Happy International Day of Charity, Happy National Teachers Day in India, and Philadelphia Eagles have named Carson Wentz its starting quarterback for Week 1. No surprise there. And that's about it on the news. My first video blog subject of the day is about the Howard Johnson's restaurant and hotel chain. For many years, Howard Johnson's restaurants were real popular. At its peak, it had over 1,000 restaurants throughout the country and Canada, and they had lots of hotels, but it's dwindled down to only one restaurant and hotel in New York. History of Howard Johnson's: it was founded in 1925 by Howard Deering Johnson in Quincy, Massachusetts. Howard borrowed $2,000 to install a soda machine in a drugstore, a soda fountain, and that became the most popular thing in the drugstore, and Howard paid the money back quickly because he had sodas. Eventually, he made ice cream with it, 28 flavors with butter, fat, and these flavors of ice cream were real unique. And in the late 1920s, Howard sold hot dogs, ice creams, and soft drinks at beaches in eastern Massachusetts. And he really wanted to branch out to do restaurants. The first Howard Johnson's restaurant opened in 1929 in Quincy, Massachusetts. It served fried clams, baked beans, chicken pot pie, hot dogs, and soft drinks. It got real popular in Quincy. Soon it expanded to Cape Cod and then all over the northeast part of the United States, including a lot on the New Pennsylvania Turnpike. There were so many Howard Johnsons in New England and New York and Pennsylvania. They came for the ice cream, they came for the fried clams and the chicken pot pie and the baked beans. And Howard Johnson's theme for all its restaurants were known for orange roofed cup, loafer, and weather vanes, which was orange. And all of the Howard Johnson's restaurants had the same thing. And by the late 1930s, there was 107 restaurants for Howard Johnson's, and it employed 100,000 people, and it served 1.5 million people each and every year. And Howard Johnson supplied some of the food for the troops in World War II. But the early 40s were not the best time for Howard Johnson's. Most of its restaurants closed down. It dwindled down to 12 restaurants during World War II, which was not very good. But after the war ended, Howard Johnson's rebuilt in the late 1940s and early 1950s by expanding to the Midwest and the Southwest, and by the 1950s, it was back and running to over 400 restaurants. And then Howard Johnson got into the hotel business its first Howard Johnson's Hotel was opened in 1954 in Savannah, Georgia. It was kind of like a little bit of a inn and lodge, and it had the same orange colors. In 1959, Howard Deering Johnson retired, and he let his son, Howard Brennan Johnson, take over the Howard Johnson's restaurant and hotel chain. But Howard Deering Johnson stayed on as an advisor into his death in 1969. And Howard Johnson was continued to expand by leaps and bounds in the 1960s. It added more and more restaurants and hotels throughout the country and expanded into Canada. A lot of people loved dining into Howard Johnson's. It started to add breakfast to the menu, so it was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it actually tried a couple of new concepts. They had the Red Coach Grills, which was kind of a steakhouse that did not take off, and another restaurant concept, the Ground Round, which became real popular in New England for years. In 1975, Howard Johnson's company peaked with 1,000 restaurants and 500 hotels. And Howard Johnson's, after that, was kind of going on a little bit of a decline. In the late 1970s, the company was sold to Imperial Group, and they started to divide the hotels and restaurants up. They eventually, sold most of their hotels, the Howard Johnson's hotels, to Hilton Hotels. And they also first spinning off the Ground Round to their own company. And also the decline in the hotel business and the restaurant business. And Howard Johnson's was one of the top restaurant chains in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But by the late 70s and early 80s, a lot of Howard Johnson restaurants were closing because the menu was outdated and kind of stale, and it was just a lot of fast food restaurant chains and other casual dining restaurants were taking over, and Howard Johnson was losing its place for the market. But they still had Howard Johnson's frozen dinners like macaroni and cheese and beef pot roast and other stuff. They were microwavable dinners, which is sodium-laden stuff. And by the early 1990s, only a handful of Howard Johnson restaurants and hotels were in existence, mainly in New England and New York, and many of them were continuing to shut down because of poor business. One by one, a lot of them were being sold and they were turning into other restaurants, which was so sad. Boston had a Howard Johnson's hotel, one of the last ones, near Fenway Park for many years, but I think that's closed down. And more like people loved going to Howard Johnson's. The last Howard Johnson's in Massachusetts closed down in the early 2000s. But it still was chugging along in some of the remaining restaurants and hotels. And in 2015, the next to last one, Bangor, Maine, closed down, and it served just breakfast and lunch. And at one time, it was booming business, but it declined to a point where they just couldn't keep up with the other chains. The last one of Howard Johnson's is in New York, and that's still going strong to this day. Howard Johnson's was a New England institution for many years in the middle 20th century, but it failed to, in my humble opinion, reinvent itself in the late 1970s, when all these fast food chains were popping up and a lot of new casual dining restaurants. If they changed with the times with the restaurant business, it could have survived. But those things happen. And also when it was sold to a imperial group, that kind of was a beginning of the end, because they was going to just turn the company, sell off the hotels. And that's about it on that. I'll be back for the second and final video blog of the night, which is my personality profile. Tonight's personality profile is game show host and voiceover announcer Todd Newton. Keep calm, everybody. I'm a Julie Pudding guy. Molly Roseblood of WCC All Rocks has nice legs. Elizabeth Fatso, so stunning, she's the best. Amy Sweezy's awesome Amy. Linda Church of WPIX Channel 11 New York has the best legs in New York City. And Barbara Gibbs of ABC 11 has a sweet southern accent. See you